It's about 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, August 22nd, 2023. It's about 80 degrees outside. It's going to get over 100 like it did yesterday. It wasn't quite as hot as it was last week, but still it's in the hundreds. And it's not so bad. I would say you feel the heat, but it doesn't feel as hot because the humidity's like pretty low comparatively. It's not Arizona low, but it is low comparatively. Anyway, the cows are here in this part of the back 20. I kind of wanted to get them to move away from, because they're in that one area. I want them to move away from that area. So I was gonna drive my side by side and see if they'd follow me. I'm bribing the sheep with a little bit of a snack here. Just training them, but every time I show up, I'm gonna bring some food. Hopefully they won't run away from me as much, you know. I wanted to show you some old patties. So I moved the cattle into the back 20 on Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday morning. So they've been back there a week almost. I'm gonna move them out, I think Friday morning. I'm not sure. But this is a patty. Here's another patty. And here's another patty. I assume that these patties are all roughly the same age. They're probably not too different from each other. First of all, this patty is a warning sign to me, because if it's piled up like this, it means they're not getting enough protein. You can see that patty's pretty much dried out though. It's full of holes from the dung beetles digging into it. It's basically soil at this point. It's just soil that sits on top of the ground. And if I leave it, it will harden into, what's the name of it? Anyway, it'll harden into a disc, and you can actually use it to light a fire. The pioneers, when they were crossing the plains, they'd collect the old dry cow patties and use them to fuel fires to cook their food. This one's not standing up as much. It's a little bit more runny. The thing that it's missing though, that you typically want to see, is like where the last little piece of poop dropped is. It makes like a little circle, like a little crater. But I don't see that. You know, here's another patty. This is probably just less manure. This one hasn't been drilled through as much, you know. And the last one I wanted to show you is over here. So this one is kind of spread out to begin with. It looks like a cow stepped in it. Hey, sheep. Sheep was curious in the camera here. And it's hard. But it's all dry. Yeah. So the dung beetles got to it. But it's more spread out than the others. So a little bit of patty observations here. These are roughly the right shape that I want them to be in. They need a protein. Everybody needs proteins. I don't want to distract myself with a talk on protein, but I was reading about protein, and I discovered that humans, like the recommended daily allowance is actually the minimum. You should be eating much more protein. By protein, it's not foods that have protein in them, it's actual protein. So like a steak isn't 100% protein. A steak has a lot of protein in it, but it's not 100% protein. And so you need to eat a fair amount of meat just to reach the minimum protein that your body needs to survive, right? If you go below that, you'll start to get symptoms and sicknesses that are caused by a lack of protein. And this is actually one of the reasons why vegans have such a hard time, is they're not getting enough protein. What is protein? Protein are chemicals. We say organic chemicals only because there's carbon in there. But they're made up of components, of little pieces. Oh gosh, I forgot what they're called. It'll come to me in a second. It's not RNA. It's It's not enzymes. Anyway, there's little pieces that come together to make the protein. Oh, what are they called? I had it on the tip of my tongue. No, I don't remember. And our body needs those pieces. It can make some of them, but it can't make all of them. Some of them have to come from the food that we eat. And that's another reason why vegans have a hard time, is they're not eating the right foods to get those components that they need. And so it's not just the sheer quantity of protein, it's also the type of protein. And the thing that I wanted to mention is that most animals have a limit on how much protein they can eat before they start to get sick. But in experimentation with humans, we found that there is really no upper limit that we can see with humans. In fact, the more protein you eat, the less food you eat. So if you're eating foods high in protein, then your appetite will diminish. You'll eat fewer carbohydrates and fewer fats, and you'll lose weight. You'll gain muscle mass. That's another thing I didn't know, is that if you want to bulk up, get bigger muscles, you have to eat lots and lots of protein, more protein than your body can possibly use. And your body will naturally develop muscles and things like that. So if you want bigger muscles, you have to eat a lot of protein. And by a lot, I mean like enormous amounts. If you're one of those skinny type dudes out there that can never seem to build any muscle, seems like you'd blow away in a strong wind, then you need to force feed yourself ridiculous amounts of food and learn how to keep it down. You know, a guy like myself, I'm a really big guy. I love food. I can't get enough of it. My problem is I eat too much of it. I love carbohydrates, like cookies, anything sweet. I just go crazy for it, which is why I can't have that. But I also love good steak, so I wanted to look at this back pasture here. I haven't really looked at this since I came back. There's a ticking sound there. So I'm looking in the distance, and I see lots of the tops of different plants that aren't grass, basically. There's quite a bit of goatweed in this half, or this side, but then there's other things on the other side. That tells me that something's growing in the field, and it's green, which is a good sign. Green means protein. But then I look down and I look at the grass, and it looks like they've pretty much cleared out most of the grass, at least here. So it's time to move them. I'll move them Friday morning. I gotta set up the fence. So what is over there making noise? I don't see anything. It sounded like a goose or something. Anyway, one thing I did want to mention also is wildfires. People say that global warming is causing wildfires. That's not true at all. The wildfires that we're seeing on the West Coast were caused by arson. The wildfires in Italy were caused by arson. And we don't have all the evidence yet in Hawaii, but I think it's fairly obvious it was caused by arson as well in Maui there. So global warming isn't causing more fires unless you believe somehow global warming is causing people to start fires. That's the unfortunate reality. Another issue is that people are no longer managing the forests. A couple years back, Canada and British Columbia, their forest caught fire. And it was pointed out the reason why was they weren't managing the forests properly. So they're ending up spending all this money to fight forest fires when they could have saved a bunch of money by managing the forest properly. So that's another thing to consider, is God's earth wasn't meant to be wild and untouched. It was meant to be managed. And when humans go in there and start messing with nature, especially if they're focused on, enhancing nature, right? Obviously paving over a forest with concrete won't help it, but clearing out some old trees, thinning the trees out will absolutely help a forest. At the same time, you get valuable lumber. So young trees tend not to catch fire as much as old trees. So you take the old trees out and replace them with new trees. And there's many different ways you can do that. But the point is this, is that we have brains. We're supposed to use those brains to figure out how best to manage the earth, right? Global warming is an entirely fabricated 100% conspiracy. We have the emails. We've had the emails for decades now. The people who are running the scam are known liars and are not using any sort of science to justify their claims. Instead, they use tactics reminiscent of the Soviet Union to suppress any dissenting opinions. There are plenty of people out there who do science and can tell you all about what's really going on, but they are silenced. It is a conspiracy. People are working together at a high level, and they've been revealed a long time ago. The emails where Mike's nature trick, where they lied about the data and they changed the data to suit their needs. One of the things that my mantra is that if you're going to make a scientific claim, you have to show me the data. And by the data, I mean the raw data, not the massage data. Show me what your sensors actually picked up, and then we'll look at what you did to that data to get your conclusions. But the fact of the matter is nobody's willing to share the raw data regarding global warming, because the raw data will set the record straight and expose the scam for what it is. So show me the data. I'm perfectly capable of analyzing data, especially the kind of data they have. And I'm just an amateur. I never really studied data science seriously. And there are people out there who can analyze the data to a higher level of scrutiny and accuracy. And they can explain their techniques and their methods and what it does. So, yeah, show me the data. Another note is AI, artificial intelligence. So I worked in AI for several years, and I studied AI, and AI is the guy that leading the industry right now is a physicist. And so I read papers about AI, and I asked some questions, and it's fairly obvious that it's also a scam of momentous proportions. And I had to basically get out of the industry because I realized how big of a scam it was, and that companies are being deceived and investing massive resources and compute power and employees' engineering time to solve a problem that can't be solved using techniques that we know won't work. So this video is getting a little long, but the long and the short of it is that when you're analyzing data and trying to use it, the goal is to be able to make predictions that are correct, right? So when you look at the data, you're supposed to superimpose upon that data a formula that you think describes the behavior that the data is describing, is measuring, right? And then you're supposed to determine how close or how far the data is from the predictions. And maybe you can use the data to adjust your predictions, like let's say you wanted to calculate little g. That's the acceleration due to gravity near the surface of the Earth. then you would apply a formula that says, hey, this is how gravity behaves to the data of a falling object, and then you can use that to calculate little g, right? You can do stuff like that. And then you can use that little g in other pieces of data and see how well it matches or if it doesn't match and things like that, right? The issue is that if you don't know what the formula is, then you can guess, right? And we have a limited set of formulas to choose from that tend to describe any phenomena out there in nature. And we can look at which ones actually work. The problem with that is you're working backwards. String theory famously is based on the idea that if we find a formula that fits the data and then we try to reverse engineer why that formula is fitting the data so well. And the problem with string theory is it fails to make any kind of prediction. It's just too loosey-goosey with everything. And so you're not starting with an assumption about how the universe works. You're starting with a drawer full of formulas that you have no idea what these formulas mean, and you're applying it to data, and you're getting a result, and it's garbage, right? But what they're doing in the AI industry is even worse than that. They're doing this thing called overfitting. And what overfitting is you take a extremely complicated formula that has, let's say, like 1 million variables or coefficients or whatever you want to call them. And then you take 1 million samples of data, and lo and behold, you're able to find a formula that perfectly describes the data without any error at all, with zero error, right? The issue with that is that such a formula has no predictive power whatsoever and fails in any kind of experiment like that, right? And the neural networks and everything like that, what they have done is they've taken formulas that they barely understand themselves with billions and billions of variables and used it on millions and millions of points of data. And then they're surprised when it turns out that the data fails to predict anything at all, right? So, yeah, it's never going to work. It's not intelligence. It's just the violation of some fundamental principles of data science. It's, for lack of a better word, putting the cart before the horse, and doing so results in a science that has no bearing whatsoever on reality, nor does it give us any insight into the nature of reality. And so it's just out there doing nothing, for no reason, and it's a waste of everybody's time and resources, right? Is AI able to do some things? Yes-ish, but those number of things are so limited in usefulness and scope that the only thing it really succeeds at doing is giving people false hope that AI can do more things. And so people are willing to invest billions and trillions of dollars into technology that never can deliver. So that's the long and short of AI, and that's why I don't do it anymore, why I don't feel comfortable doing it. So anyway, guys, have a great day. Take care, and bye-bye.